Hey collectors! Again, it's been a few weeks since I've done a video. Pretty much right after I put up the last video, I came down with the flu. So I actually spent the last couple of weeks, and if you've been following me on my Twitter, my Facebook or my Instagram, I actually did the garage kit that I talked about in the last video. And she's all done. She's not fantastic, but it was a lot of fun. So I wanted to show you a little bit of footage of me actually going and making it and really tell you about my experiences. So as far as equipment, I started with absolutely nothing. I'm not really that crafty. I don't paint really at all. Any of that stuff, like I said, I'm not that kind of creative. But with the sales that were going on, I ended up picking up a lot of equipment, and everything that I purchased ended up coming in handy. And I wanted to go and explain to you what worked well for me and what didn't, and give some recommendations so that way ideally when you decide you want to try and do your own garage kit, you've got some suggestions. So the first thing, when it comes to these kits, you have to be able to cut off all the little bits and pieces because it all comes with a lot of extra tabs and things like that, keep it all together, and you'll need to sand everything back. For sanding, you only really need little pieces and try and get finer grit. I found that this worked really well. I think this was 240 grit. Of course you can go much higher, but this worked quite well for me. Then once that was done, there is body cleaner, which is basically like using your simple grain and giving it the bath. This was really fast. It dried really quickly, it cleaned everything off just fine, and it also worked quite well for taking off the paint when I made mistakes and I needed to do it all over again. So this is the Tamiya polycarbonate body cleaner. I got this just at the hobby shop where I bought all of the paints and everything else. And yeah, it worked really well. Something that didn't work so well was this. So this is the Mr. Hobby base white, which is your primer. Just get a spray can of primer. This was really painful to do. It worked, it did what it was supposed to, but it was really quite frustrating going and painting it on, so just spend a little bit extra to go and get a spray can. I had a lot of people ask me what a pin vise was in person when I was going and telling them about this. It's one of those little hand drills. So the one that I got was Tamiya again, because I got it from the hobby shop, and it comes with several drill bits, which are for going and putting the holes for pinning your kit. And this is coming quite handy. I picked up the Tamiya epoxy putty, which is for filling in gaps. This was really easy to work with. I hardly had to use any while doing this kit, though admittedly this kit was quite well done. There weren't very many bubbles or extra seam lines or anything like that I had to work with. The gaps were minimal. And then this glue. I actually asked the people at the hobby shop what glue they recommended for this, and they said this one in particular. So this one is 2 to 5 second dry time, so super fast, so you have to work quite quickly with it. It will very quickly bond your skin. I learned that very quickly, many times. But this worked really quickly, and it worked really well for putting everything together. I also painted this all by hand. I didn't use an airbrush because I'm not willing to commit several $100s to something that I know I'm not good at. Maybe one day. Definitely not now, but I think it worked out pretty well overall. The paints that I used worked quite well. They were the Vallejo model colours. So a lot of the colours that you'll get at hobby shops are designed for airbrushes that I've learned. I specifically went for a water-based acrylic that was good for using with brushes. So if you're going to be going to a hobby shop for acrylic paints, make sure that you go for something like that. Other than that, these are a couple of pieces that I wasn't actually sure of as far as buying. So I picked up this stuff, and it is quite thin and it is very hard to tell what it is. But this is actually music wire, specifically piano wire. This is a little bit pricey, but piano wire is actually typically quite pricey, but this is for pinning as well. And I think this was very useful for me as far as putting together several pieces. Definitely worth having some of this, and pliers for going and cutting them up. And the last little bit, all the little alligator clips. I thought about buying these, and it's possible to get them from Hobby Search, but I actually made these. So I went to an electronic shop, bought the alligator clips, which came with some electric wire and was in rubber. I took off all the extra bits and was left with the crab clips at the end, and I got a whole heap of skewers and put them all together, and it really worked quite well. Yeah, I've made a heap. I think I ended up with 40 of them all up. So if you don't want to go and order some of these, this is definitely a cheaper option. As far as my experience going and doing this, it was a lot easier than I was expecting, though admittedly I spent a lot of time reading guides online, specifically this one. I'll put a link in the description as well. This is by a friend of mine. This is another My Figure Collection moderator, and her guide is probably one of the best ones that I've read as far as ones for beginners that really have no idea what they're getting themselves into. Otherwise, this was 20 pieces, I think, all up. I ended up making the base by hand. It's very exceptionally average, but it worked out pretty well. I'm quite happy with it. I just used some polymer clay, oven baked clay, and that's how I ended up with it. So if you have any questions about how this went, feel free to ask me in the comments below, and hopefully I can answer you, or at least point you in the right direction, since I definitely do not know everything that I'm doing. I hope you had fun seeing some of the work in progress pictures. I was actually planning on recording the whole thing, but my camera died midway, so I missed a whole lot of footage, and I was doing a lot of just bits and pieces, like 10 minutes here and there, and I would just forget to put the camera on. So here's a mix of pictures as well. I'm definitely thinking of going and making another kit when I go to Wonderfest next year, so hopefully I can come up with a really good one, and I can maybe stream it if you'd be interested in seeing it being streamed. I don't know. Let me know! Anyway, the whole like, comment, subscribe, blah 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 blah, and I will see you next time. Bye!